do? What you gonna do? Gonna stop this pipeline. Gonna stop this pipeline. Gonna stop this pipeline. Gonna stop this pipeline. What you gonna do? That's what you gonna do. No KXL. 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 No KXL.
Warning, the following program contains news talk, solutions, and information not found in filtered media outlets. Viewer discretion is advised.
Attention, you are now about to enter
Filter-Free Radio.
So open your mind, push reset, and reboot your computer.
Excuse me while I whip this out.
Looking for filters? Check your coffee maker. This is Filter-Free Radio with Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott. FilterFreeRadio.com. Get ready to suck down some grounds.
When I talk about resistance, I think we have to stand up now and carry out acts of nonviolent resistance.
Because the truth is, we do have power.
We live in revolutionary times, but the counter-revolution is winning.
Sounds like a case of the Mondays.
Live Monday, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern. FilterFreeRadio.com.
This is my favorite show.
We have been given an opportunity to make a new beginning.
And I think it's very important for us to start to build a culture of resistance because what we're doing isn't working, clearly. It's our job to very coldly assess reality and then figure out how to respond.
Your number one source for unfiltered truth, analysis, and solutions. FilterFreeRadio.com.
And welcome to the show, Filter Free Radio. Broadcasting live, episode number 107. Welcome, friends, alternative thinkers, independent minds, unfiltered truth seekers. Jacob Dean here broadcasting live, Portland, Oregon. It is Monday, March 3rd, 2014. Filter Free Radio, our show, fed up with the status quo, talking about how we're going to change it. We're going to talk about how we're going to mobilize the people to get active, how we need to be the change. And remember, if we can reach just one person today, right here, right now, you and me, we can make a difference in your life. You can make a difference in my life. And hey, that's a lifetime of difference we have made. That is a success. We are live on our website, filterfreeradio.com, as well as radioornot.com, the home of Nicole Sandler. We are live on TuneIn, the TuneIn app, on Liberal Justice Radio. And hey, if you want to carry the program, if you want to carry and syndicate Filter Free Radio, it's all good. Just give me an email, jacob@filterfreeradio.com. We need to get in touch. We need to get together. We need to get connected. We need to help each other out and spread the word. That's what it's all about. It is so good to be with you. By my side, as always, is our super duper awesome mass producer, our co-host, our kick-ass, all-around brother from another mother who just happens to be live in our nation's capital in Washington, D.C., where they're getting hammered by the snow. Damn that climate change. Mr. Skeptical Scott is live with us.
Hello.
Hey, man.
Hello. How's it going?
Oh, it's going. It's so good. Hey, it's been a long time since we've done a filter-free radio, but it feels like we've been doing radio shows nonstop for the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, we'll do that.
It's such an honor and a privilege to be asked by Nicole Sandler to fill in, and I got to say thanks again to Nicole Sandler. We had such a great time doing the Nicole Sandler show, radioornot.com there for about 4 or 5 days. I can't remember now. And also, if you tuned in yesterday on We Act Radio, 1480 AM in Washington, D.C., or at talkingleft.com. If you got up early yesterday morning, Shano and Danielle were off, and Skeptical Scott and I were in, and just we're making the rounds, We're spreading the love, telling it like it is, radical truth-telling, It's kind of fun. And so thank you to Nicole Sandler, of course, and thanks to Danielle and Shano for allowing us to fill in and help out. And Scott, man, thank you, dude, first and foremost, for getting up so early all those days and hanging in there with me.
5:30 my time or anything.
and hanging in there with me, dude. I couldn't do it without you, man. So I just wanted to say, and thanks to everyone at radioornot.com and talkingleft.com in the chat rooms there for hanging out with us and checking out. I had a great time, and I hope you did too. And it's been a busy week for us. So I haven't had too much time to dive into and do a real new topic or expose like we normally like to do. I haven't read another book yet to share with you. So coming up on this show, though, we do have a big show lined up. Scott and I are going to continue a conversation that seemed to be one of the most popular conversations we were having during our fill-in times, and that is, what is filter-free radio about? What do we want to talk about? What do we feel like our purpose is? Why do Scott and I keep coming back and trying to do this? What is our moral obligation that we feel? And what are we trying to accomplish? What are we trying to do with filter-free radio? And we've got a lot of clips.
I think society as a whole.
Exactly, and it's and you know we don't just talk about us. We're trying to always focus on everything, and so we're going to talk about that. We got a lot of audio to share with you, and of course we always want to invite your participation in the show. This is a fantastic show. For you, if you're listening live and you want to call into the program, this is a great opportunity this next 2 hours for you to do it. Or even if you're listening on a record or on a podcast on iTunes or on Stitcher or on YouTube, if you're listening to us on a delay, you can call in and leave your comments 24/7, anytime on the voicemail message line, and we will continue the conversation on the next episode. But 503-746-TALK. 503-746-TALK. That's 503-746-8255. If you want to comment, you can also check us out here. All the contact information is scrolling across the top of your screen there. There goes the phone number, 503-746-TALK, 503-746-8255. You can Skype into the show. This is an online program, and I don't want you to have to pay a penny to ever watch this show. We need to talk about net neutrality one of these days. What are we going to do about it? But I don't want you to have to pay to watch the show. That's why everything is free. I don't want you to have to pay to contact us. If you can email us for free, Jacob@filterfreeradio.com, skeptical@filterfreeradio.com, or you can Skype in to the show. If you're on Skype, if you can get on Skype for free, it's Jacob_Dean. Any way you want to contact us, we'd love to hear from you. Or write us on the Facebook page. Write us on Twitter. We are getting so much more interaction now with friends on Twitter and Facebook since doing Nicole's show and Danielle and Shano's show. And it's so great to see the conversation there. And, you know, I mean, maybe it's a good time to mention we get feedback from time to time, and I always want feedback. I want constructive criticism. I want you, the listener, to keep me as honest as I'm trying to keep you, and we can keep each other in check. And anytime I get feedback, I always, I take it very seriously, and I always want to encourage folks to comment and to let us know how you think we're doing, what you like, what you don't like. If you have any comments on a new filterfreeradio.com, which is coming soon, you can check out ffradio.net and tell me what you think, and then maybe we can go from there. Or I don't want to deter or keep you from ever holding back and say, oh, I've always wanted to tell you guys something, but I've never done it. I'm not going to do it. No. I want to hear it. And we did get a listener comment on our Facebook page that I wanted to address. I don't want to name her or single her out, or I already cut off half the audience there. Keep them anonymous. I'm sorry. I don't want to single out the listener or I'm not going to say their name or anything. But
we just want to expand the dialogue, and we appreciate anybody who is able to comment, and we'd like to respond. I think, and it's important to know that we're listening to you, and you're listening to us, and we certainly are trying to have a conversation. And it's oftentimes, I think, Jacob and I take things for granted because we've been doing this so long and reading. We've been reading about all these issues for a number of years now.
Exactly.
So there's things that we sort of take for granted without actually explaining ourselves. And it's good that people and listeners, respond and say, hey, this doesn't jive or whatever. And then we can respond in kind and we certainly appreciate people keeping us honest.
And essentially, to boil it down, the feedback that we got was words to the effect of, you guys and all of these Chris Hedges clips can really be depressing sometimes, and yeah, I get that. I totally get that. And
it really is. I mean, reality is depressing.
It is. And also, I'm not trying. We never do personal attacks. I never try to do personal attacks. I'm never trying to ever offend anyone. And especially, for the folks who are what I would consider coming along in the development of the political process and thinking ideologies, it's a slow process. It's like Scott and I talk about all the time. We didn't arrive at the conclusions we have now yesterday. Like I said, I worked for Tom Hartman as the associate producer from 2009 to 2012. And from 2009, I go into working for Tom, never cared about politics. The only thing I cared about was the Portland Trailblazers, the Oregon Ducks, going bowling, going fishing, and my dog and the college babes. I didn't care about anything. And then, from 2009 until about 2011, the only thing I care about was I'm pro-democratic, pro-Democrat Party, go blue. We're gonna elect congressmen, and we're gonna take down the Tea Party, and then from 2011 to 2012, 2013, I'm getting into Democracy Now. And you can literally see this progression for yourself if you go to our website, go to our episode archive. It's all there. It's all free. Go back and listen to the very first episode we ever did, or the first.
I realized just how far off base we were when we started.
Right, and that's 3 years ago almost at this point. And
well, it's amazing. I think you pointed out earlier in a pre-show conversation we had about when we had Ted Rawl on, and we're going to play the Ted Rawl clip in a little bit. But how he made us all a little uncomfortable with some of the comments he made, and now this is a year later, or a year ago, and so now a year later we're like, oh, that guy was spot on and just ahead of the curve for what our understanding is, and that's the whole natural evolution of, I think, the learning process and wisdom and understanding how society works and what are the root causes of all these issues or symptoms or whatever you want to call the day-to-day news that breaks and in tragedies, etc. And the understanding of what things really are, and not to take things on face value. And I think earlier on in our development, our political development, I know personally anyway, I can't speak for you, Jacob, but personally, it was just getting into what got me interested in politics initially, and I can say this, was the Al Franken show on Air America Radio, and it was rebroadcast at night in a consolidated 1 hour format of the best of that day's 3 hour show on the Sundance Channel. And my father and I would sit there at 10 o'clock at night and watch it together. And it was really like, oh, okay, I get this. Now, mind you, this is during the George Bush era.
Well, he was also an SNL guy, so it was funny.
Oh, yeah. He was very clever. He's very funny, very witty.
I mean, we love Jon Stewart and Colbert, and I mean, it's funny. Yeah.
Yes, and that's the other thing, too. Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert also got me, interested in politics because they do it with a lot of levity, and they're able to reach a wide audience of people who maybe not be entirely well-informed. They're able to sort of make light of things that aren't necessarily funny, and so it makes it more palatable to understand. And that's how I got into things, just with because I have opinions. Everyone's got opinions based on
we do
what little information we know, and then of course, but I had a lot of opinions and not a lot of facts.
Right.
Not a great understanding of things, but I knew, but I was strongly opinionated, as is everybody. And then of course, when I started to fill in the blanks, and there started to just basically tear down the initial opinions that I had. Once the more information I got, the more I realized how little I know and how my opinions were completely wrong-headed, and in fact the exact programming that the corporate state wanted me to believe. And it's like, you go back and you think, God, was I brainwashed? And it wasn't even the brainwashing so much as just when you're so busy and you're so passive that you just sort of take things in and you just take them for granted and you move on.
Right.
And then if you later in life and as the years progress and the more information you learn and the more alternative news sources that you seek out, personally, I'm speaking from personal experience here, the more you seek out, the more you realize, man, I was just fed a bunch of bullshit. and especially by MSNBC and other so-called liberal progressive outlets or whatever, the Washington Post and et cetera, et cetera. And so those are all media outlets that I don't consume anymore. And I think to call them news is really playing fast and loose with the definition of news. It's more of a spin for the Democratic Party and for my side, your side. And in the very end of things, I think as I'm being tangential here, and I apologize, but the natural progression of things was to identify with what you feel you identify with initially, and then to try and explain and rationalize those identities. And the more I did that, the more I realized that I was just being sucked into the so-called paradigms that they wanted me to be sucked into, and that falls into the left-right, Democrat versus Republican, my team, your team, rah-rah, sis boom bah. You follow it like you would sports. Right. Except for it's politics. And then
my team, your team. Right.
Yeah, you start to really understand the civic aspect of it and the societal and cultural aspect of it. And then you really become disenfranchised and depressed. And I mean, there was a while I just sort of tuned it all out because I'm like, it's all crap. But then, the more the news permeates your daily life and the more you cannot avoid it, the more you seek for real luminaries to help you understand what's going on. And that's where I learned about Noam Chomsky and Cornel West and Chris Hedges and Slavoj Žižek and John Pilger, Amy Goodman and Fannie Lou Hamer and the list goes on, activists, And the more I understood that, as Howard Zinn said, this was the great Howard Zinn, right? He, that history is not written by the very wealthy, white, rich businessmen. History is written by the rest of us. And the problem is that our textbooks and the things we're told in the media, which, let's face it, very, very wealthy businesses own all of the media we see, read, and hear, are the ones that are doing all the history writing. And if you can, those who control the past control the future. And so we've had a history that's been completely rewritten from the perspective of the capitalist and the corporate paradigm to the detriment of the struggles of those who come before us. And I'm talking, of course, about the civil rights movement, the labor movement, the women's suffragist movements, and all these movements that have brought us to this point, that have allowed for us to not fall into a neo-feudalistic or a feudalistic society. And then, of course, you go all the way back to FDR and these things, and what we have is the war on the New Deal. I mean, we've had just, when people organize and they get active and they're actually able to resist the onslaught of money. I mean, organized people always is the only way to trump organized money, right? Right. And so we have to remember that. We have to remember that our history was built by the struggle and not by voting and not by, joining one side or the other side or not by the individual. I mean, we are a communal species, and I think divide and conquer is the best way to describe the way that the corporate state has dominated us up to this point. So, anyway, I digress. But,
here's two things. First of all, you haven't got to talk much, man, for the last 6 shows that we've been filling in on. So first of all, I want you to riff. Second of all, it's all good. I dig it, and the people dig it. Second of all, to get back to where it started, though. Like you said, it takes time. It's been a slow progression. It's been years for me personally, and I don't ever want to try to. The goal is never to offend anyone. The goal is simply to share my progress, to share what I'm vibing on. And my thinking process is, hey, maybe if I'm enjoying something, if I take interest in what Chris Hedges is talking about, in what Howard Zinn wrote about, and what Noam Chomsky is talking about, or what's on the air every morning on Democracy Now!, then hey, maybe my listeners or my friends, I don't even consider you listeners, I consider you friends, for the record. I think my friends might take an interest in that, and
I think it's also important that if you have information that needs to be shared with the wider public, that you do that. And that's the impetus for our radio show. I mean, we started off sitting on the couch talking about the things we learned and how no one's having the conversations that you and I were having. And you said, man, we got to do this on the air. And I'm like, I don't know, man. No one wants to listen to it, It's like,
well, and that's just the thing is, and this is exactly how I kind of replied back to the friend that sent us the feedback that started this conversation. I kind of said, hey, I think, we need to, all of us need to keep each other in check, and we all need to kind of, have our own feathers ruffled a little bit once in a while. And so we can, step outside of our own boxes and progress forward. The idea is so we can simply progress forward, give our future a chance, better ourselves for a better tomorrow, today, not tomorrow, you know what I'm saying? And
better tomorrow.
And the goal is never to offend anyone. It's just simply to try to get ourselves to question more and maybe discover something that we've been missing or something we weren't seeing, and
deeply self-critical in order to grow. I mean, that's one of the struggles, I think, of humanity, is to the breaking down of ideas that we take for granted, and understanding the term I like it the best to describe it is called fallibilism. It's fallibilism, the belief that at any given minute we could do a 180 on our any one of our beliefs and realize that we are exactly wrong, and that everything we thought and held dear is false, and that this other option is true.
And that's super important. That's super important because if I expect someone to have an epiphany, to have a paradigm shift, to change how they think, then I must keep an open mind. I must be able to change how I think if I need to.
That's why I love the dialogue. That's why I love the feedback. I love people saying, hey, you guys aren't doing this, or why do you say this, or this is that. I love to hear the criticism, as long as it's constructive, of course.
Right.
So I can respond and say, well, here's how I got this, and please enlighten me if I'm wrong. And then we can have a dialogue, and then we can all grow and learn. And that's how I personally learn. I learn by talking and listening to other people and understanding what's really going on. And I read, of course. It's hard because I think initially for me, being told that my belief system was fundamentally flawed was a really hard thing to grasp. I mean, it's inherent in our society to place ownership on the individual and say, well, this person is not a success, or this person's in this situation, fill in the blank, because of their own doing, not because of their lot in life, not because they're what sperm they're born, who their sperm donor was. It's not because they're rich or poor, but because of themselves. And that's just really, that's the false paradigm we're fed on a day-to-day basis, that it's the individual's fault and not society. Right. Because if we were to take responsibility on a larger scale for all the suffering in our society, or in the world for that matter, on a global scale, that's a heavy load to bear.
I know where you're going with this, by the way, but that's okay. Keep going.
That's what I'm saying. It's like it's the whole idea of global empathy,
right?
And expanding empathy from one's own immediate social circle or family and friends to all of humanity. And it's the whole. I mean, Bob Marley spoke about this. I mean, there's lots of people throughout history who spoke about the need for empathy on a global scale for all of humanity. And it's a struggle, because when you feel out of control and you feel disempowered, it's easy to say that's the individual's fault because there's nothing you can do to help them. But to take responsibility for other people's struggles is a really, really heavy load to bear. And if we could do that on a societal and even on a global basis, then we'd have obviously a much greater chance for survival as human species, for starters, because we wouldn't have climate change, we wouldn't have starvation, we wouldn't have all the ridiculous things that are now endangering our existence,
right.
Because we'd have this understanding that we are all in this together, and that I am my brother's keeper, and so as I do unto others, I'd expect to be done unto me. And that does not mean turning away from someone's suffering.
Right. And in other words, we've had like the technological revolution clearly over the last 100 years or more, a couple of 100 years. The technology has evolved tremendously. We have yet to have a moral revolution. And if the morality could catch up with the technology, I mean, heck, it would all be good.
That sounds like an MLK clip. You're going to bust out an MLK clip?
Yeah.
Come on, let's hear it. We want to get on board the moral revolution?
Yeah, right, exactly. But, one more, just to put a final punctuation, I got one more point to make about this conversation. And that is, and this is exactly what I wrote back to our friend who wrote us on Facebook. I said, words to the effect of, the reason why we only have 8 people in our chat room at radioornot.com right now And there's probably a few over at the old chat room. By the way, if you're not at radioornot.com watching the show there, you should go to radioornot.com and watch the show there. You can watch it on Ustream there. It's free. It's the same exact show, broadcasting live. But that's where the chat room is, where most people are chatting. If you want to participate with the other folks in the chat room, it's at radioornot.com. I really appreciate the folks who are in the old chat room, and I know that is what's on our website. A lot of people go to filterfreeradio.com and watch us live from our website.
But we're going to upgrade.
The new website is coming, and if you want to know if you want a sneak peek, go to FF Radio, as in Filter Free Radio. Go to ffradio.net and check out what the new site's going to look like. That said, what our show talks about a lot of the times, it's not the intent, but most of the time, what happens is the things that we talk about on this program are not what people want to hear. But I feel it's what I need to hear. This is just as much of a reminder to myself. Moment of disclosure. I'm only 25 years old. I'll be 26 next month. I don't know everything. I know nothing. I'm taking the position of I know nothing. I'm trying to keep an open mind. I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to grow. Trying to be a sponge.
Confucius say the path to wisdom begins by accepting that you know nothing.
Exactly. And so, some people might tune in and catch 5 minutes of the show on an episode, and they've never seen us before, and they're like, "Man, this guy is just bashing the heck out of Democrats, man. I'm a Democrat, man. That's depressing." And let me just stop and back up and say, no. I mean, if you're a Democrat, then that tells me that you are partially awake, and awake more than some, at least half, right? And so that's a great start. I was there between 2009 and 2011-ish. And and so you can go back and listen to it. The archive is there. It's free. And I know a lot of the times we're not talking about what people want to hear, but I truly, honestly, deep down inside, truly believe it's what I need to hear, it's what Scott needs to hear, it's what we need to hear. It's not what we want to hear. That's why there's only 8 people hanging out in the chat room.
Uncomfortable truths, my friend. Uncomfortable truths, and that's the whole false paradigm we're fed, that we have to identify with one or the other party in order to have success in our society. And that if only more Democrats were elected. Well, I mean, we've had 3 Democrat presidents in the last. What were we looking at? Clinton twice and Obama twice. So we've had 16 years of Democratic presidents wedged in between 8 years of Bush. And then, of course, before Clinton. So 16 out of the last 24 years have been Democratic presidents. I mean, how's that turned out?
Right.
And that just shows to go you that it's not those attracted to. I got to go right to Karl Popper, man, in his book, An Open Society and Its Enemies. And the question is not how do we get good people to rule. That is the wrong question. Those who are attracted to power are at best mediocre and more often venal. The question is, how do we make the powerful afraid of us? And actually, the exact quote is, how do we keep the powerful from doing as much damage to us as they can, specifically? And that's where we are. We cannot be a party to the parties. We have to be honest, and it's really telling truths that no one wants to hear. And if that makes us pariahs, well, kill the messenger. But that does not invalidate our message.
Amen, dude. And on that note, we've got to run to we'll take a short break here at the bottom of the hour. We'll come back. We'll get into some good audio clips. We got a little bit of news to talk about. The fantastic civil disobedience happening over the weekend in Washington, D.C., protesting that Keystone XL pipeline. We're going to talk about that. And we'll continue this conversation. I hope you come right back. Don't go anywhere. FilterFreeRadio.com, RadioOrNot.com. We are also live on Liberal Justice Radio on the TuneIn app. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
I can't show my face anywhere. Might as well be back doing public radio.
Hey friends, Jacob Dean here with exciting news. You can now hear my show, Filter Free Radio, on the free Stitcher mobile app. Just download the free Stitcher app from Stitcher.com or in the App Store and search for Filter Free Radio. That's all there is to it. No syncing, no taking up memory on your device. Just Filter Free Radio on demand for you on the go. Plus, you can rate and review Filter Free Radio on Stitcher. The more you rate, review, and share us, the higher we will rank on Stitcher, and that means the more people will discover Filter Free Radio. It's never been easier to enjoy Filter Free Radio and help us spread the word. So download the free Stitcher app, search for Filter Free Radio, and start benefiting from unfiltered radical truth-telling anytime, anywhere. Thanks, and keep up the good fight.
Okay, climate change deniers, you've gone too far. You've gone from just being annoying know-nothings to now posing a serious threat to an essential good that embodies humankind's finest collaboration with nature, beer. It's one thing for the science denial cult to stand in the way of doing something about melting ice caps in the Arctic, but it's another thing altogether for them to mess with beer. This makes it personal. While the deniers keep doing their denial dance, California is drying up. The higher temperatures caused by climate change has produced an ongoing drought that has, among other bad things, caused a precipitous drop in the water level of Lake Mendocino, which could come close to being a dry lake bed this summer. What has that got to do with beer? Glad you asked. Mendocino feeds the Russian River, which flows by the town of Petaluma, home of Lagunitas Brewing Company, which makes very fine beers. A key ingredient in the Lagunitas brew is the excellent water the company draws from the Russian River, which presently is in danger of becoming a trickle. Can't Lagunitas and other breweries along the river just switch to groundwater? No. The head beer master at Lagunitas notes that heavy minerals in that water would cause it to fizz in the brewing process. Plus, there are concentrations of nitrates, iron, and manganese in the area's groundwater, creating issues of odor, taste, and other unpleasantries that do not add up to good beer. This is Jim Hightower saying, what the Lagunitas experience is teaching us once again is that the nature of nature is that all things are linked together, despite the fantasies of industry shills who insist that their contaminants have no dire consequences. Mess with the global climate, and you mess with Lake Mendocino, which messes with the Russian River, which messes with the beer. And now, you're messing with me and millions of other beer drinkers. Like I said, it's personal.
Hightower's commentaries are brought to you by the Hightower Lowdown, the monthly newsletter with Hightower's populist take on what the powers that be are up to. Find out more at hightowerlowdown.org.
Filter Free Radio.
Filter Free Radio. Filter Free Radio with Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott.
Jacob Dean. With Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott.
This judge is saying it's okay for the NSA to record all of our data, invade our privacy, go against the Fourth Amendment, simply because doing this could have, potentially prevented the 9/11 attacks. Don't you love that? And that's the justification that this judge has got. Yeah, we could have stopped 9/11. Hey, I got an idea. You know what could also stop new 9/11s from happening? Ending the wars. Okay? How would you feel if your neighbor across the street flew over a little remote-controlled aerial drone and blew up your front yard? Probably wouldn't like that much. I wouldn't like that much. I'm just saying, though. Maybe you like that kind of thing.
Filter Free Radio with Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott.
People say, well, we have to protect ourselves from the terrorists. Well, you have to ask why we have terrorists and why they want to do us harm. Well, it's retaliation. We taught them to behave in this manner because we've done this to them. We annihilate wedding parties. We're like the number one at killing wedding parties. I mean, we've literally bombed several wedding parties to wipe out people.
No, you can't be serious.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious, and don't call me Shirley. The notion that we have to protect ourselves from terrorists means we're just covering our asses for what we've done to them.
FilterFreeRadio.com.
You never know who or what you'll hear when you listen to the Nicole Sandler Show at RadioOrNot.com.
Your view is not being represented in this country because all of our views have been corrupted by money and politics. Remember, 94% of the time, the candidate who raises the most money wins.
That's the fact that we need to drive home constantly. It's all about the money. Dylan Radigan, you rock.
The Nicole Sandler Show, live Monday through Thursdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, or podcast anytime at RadioOrNot.com.
Hi, this is Kenny Pick from Turn Up the Night. Here are some of the hijinks you can expect from my show.
Also, news just recently came out about a 15-year-old girl, I think, over in the UK.
Yeah.
Who's only eating McNuggets, and this 15-year-old
get real sick.
Yeah, her tongue swelled up and she collapsed.
What's the technical medical term for eating nothing but chicken nuggets?
I think that would be suicide.
Turn Up the Night with Kenny Pick, streaming live every Tuesday and Friday from 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern at Radio or Not, Talk Radio 1, Progressive Blend Radio, and KennyPick.com.
Begin transmission. This is Liberal Justice Radio.
Yeah, there's guns and glow lights and kids wear the vests.
Yeah, no,
splitting teams.
Right. No, I know what it is.
Liberal Justice Radio on TuneIn and A Online Radio.
I've narrowed your choices down to 5 unthinkable options. Each will cause untold misery.
I'd pick number 3.
You don't even want to read them first?
I was elected to lead, not to read. Number 3.
Yes, you're in deep doo now.
Millhouse, you don't care about the environment. Hey, I am very passionate about the planet.
Say global warming is a myth.
It's a myth. Further study is needed.
That's for selling out your beliefs.
Well, it's good to know that we're not the only ones passionate about the planet. If you're watching us on Ustream, I know I apologize, by the way. All of those ads and those commercials that randomly pop up on Ustream, that has nothing to do with us or our show whatsoever. That is all Ustream. You can listen to us live on Liberal Justice Radio. There's a link on our website at filterfreeradio.com. You can listen there. That's an audio link, but there's no commercials there. And we are chatting in the chat room at radioornot.com. We are broadcasting live. It is March 3rd, 2014, 4:37 p.m. on the West Coast, 7:37 p.m. on the East Coast. And Jacob Dean, Skeptical Scott here. And I'm showing you a picture on the Ustream from the Real News Network, therealnews.com, of some of the activists who showed up at the White House over the weekend protesting the Keystone XL pipeline. And, you know, of course, we've been protesting the pipeline now for, going on 3 years. And some of us have. This radio show has been protesting the Keystone Pipeline since August of 2011, alongside Bill McKibben there. Good times, right?
Friend of the show.
And Bill's been on the show a couple times. I don't have a clip of Bill McKibben ready, dang it, but it's always good to play some Bill McKibben, I suppose. And Scott, tell me, because you were in Washington D.C. And I actually I've been super duper busy for the last 24 and 48 hours outside of radio world, in real life world, doing all sorts of things, buying vehicles, taking care of dogs. It's been busy. It's been a busy couple days for me. What do you know about the protest yesterday? You were telling me, how many people were arrested?
I think the last count was 400 or around 400. I don't know the exact number. But yeah, 400 college students were arrested. Apparently what they did was they marched from Georgetown University campus, which is, if you know the way D.C. is set up, it's, I guess, it'd be 9 o'clock on your dial. They marched from University of Georgetown, or Georgetown University, down to the White House, right, which is, somewhere in the middle of the city, where the hands are. So they marched a good ways. I'm not sure if it's a mile or two, but it's a good clip. And there was at least 500 people, I believe, who participated in the march. And after the end of the march culminated, about 400 of them got arrested. They either chained themselves to the White House fence or laid down in a restricted zone there on Pennsylvania Avenue, which, by the way, prior to 9/11 was completely open road you could drive down, but now it's corded off because they got to keep a large perimeter around the White House. So they laid down there in what used to be Pennsylvania Avenue, and they were arrested because they're not supposed to be there. So it was a willful act of civil disobedience by a lot of college students. And
that's so cool.
Yeah, it's a start. I think it's a good start. I think it's a good way to raise awareness, and if you could do this every weekend, that'd be something.
It was known as XL Dissent Weekend in Washington. XL Dissent, I like that. And what I see here is organizers saying that likely this is the largest youth sit-in on the environment in over a generation. So that's super cool. And it's no wonder why millennials, people my age, I'm 25, and the younger generations are a little bit more concerned about the climate change thing than everyone else, because some of us are going to have to deal with that climate change thing that apparently doesn't exist for the next 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. Well, it goes on, and hey, I want to have a kid at some point. You breeder, right?
Come on, yeah, breeder.
I do want to have a kid at some point, and I would like them to be able to exist. But see, I'm a little bit on the fence, or at least, when I was growing up, I always wanted to have a kid, right? And now the older you get, the more you know, and now I'm like thinking, do I want to put a child into a world that they're not going to be able to drink clean water in, breathe clean air in? I don't. Oh well.
Suffer a lot more than you or your parents have suffered.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
There's questions, right? And let that be. That's another question. I don't have the answers. I don't have all the answers. Picking up the conversation from the first segment, real quick. I'm not trying to pretend like I got all the answers. I'm just trying to say at least we're asking the right questions. I think we are, sort of, ish, somewhere.
Yeah, we're trying.
We're trying. This is another reason why we need independent journalists like Glenn Greenwald or Jeremy Scahill. This is why we need independent journalism like Democracy Now! Every day, doing the real hard work, Actually, that's a perfect segue. Did you see all last week, 2 weeks, that why everyone needs Democracy Now! Everyone's put up their picture, I need Democracy Now! Because, they kick ass.
Because it was their 18th anniversary.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, they've been doing this 18 years now.
Okay.
They're like, we're old enough to vote. So anyway, they asked people to send in pictures with little snippets or little words written saying why they needed Democracy Now! And what, and so it's Jacob did his own thing, right?
Yeah, and this is for us. This is for Scott and I. This is why we need Democracy Now! Here's that short clip for you. My name is Jacob Dean from Portland, Oregon, and I need Democracy Now! Because Democracy Now! Goes to where the silence is. They hold those in power accountable. They are not a party to the parties, and they are a real check and balance on power with daily journalism that brings us that much closer to Democracy Now! And you had to keep it shorter than 30 seconds, and that was like 25, so there you go, right?
Nice.
So, and I don't think they played it because I had my bumper sticker up, and I was totally plugging filter-free radio. Check this shit out, Amy Goodman.
You and your ulterior motives.
Well, hey, the thing is we don't take advertising money. We don't have advertising budgets,
I think it's cool that you got a chance to meet her and interview her, and basically she told us, to go over to silence. She told us exactly that. I think that's a good thing to say.
Here's that clip. Let's start playing some of our favorite clips, some of our favorite moments of filter-free radio. Anything, Scott, that you want to hear, just call it out. We'll just rapid fire for the rest of the show. And any friends, if you want to call in, open line 503-746-TALK. All callers will go to the front of the line. We'll take your calls as soon as they come in. And if there's a clip that you want to hear, a clip that you like, or something from the show that you'd like, let's talk about it. 503-746-TALK. Here is exactly where I got what I was going to say. Why do we need Democracy Now! I got it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. Check this out.
And your advice for young independent activists and broadcasters and journalists, what should we be focusing on our effort?
Continue to be good journalists, to go to where the silence is. We are not a party to the parties. We're supposed to be holding those in power accountable. There's a reason why our profession, journalism, is the only one explicitly protected by the U.S. Constitution, because we're supposed to be the check and balance on power.
Amy, thank you so much.
Thank you.
See, there you go. Dear Jacob, give voice to the silenced majority. Democracy Now! Love, Amy Goodman. Keep up the good work. Right back at you, Amy. So, not that you ever will listen to this show, but that's all good.
No, but the point is she's an inspiration to us.
Right.
The work she does. If you know her history and go back, she was almost killed during the during an uprising of what country is that? Some small country in the South Pacific. Anyway, she's done the hard journalism, hard activism, and journalism is activism, and you have to. That's as George Orwell said. Real journalism is printing what someone does not want printed, and everything else is just public relations. And we have a public relations machine that is disguised as news these days in our society. We don't have real journalism. The only real journalism that does exists outside of the corporate box, outside of the so-called mainstream. And that requires activism. It requires you to actively seek out that information because it will not be given to you. Everything else is just public relations.
Yep.
And we have a public relations machine that's just owned and operated by, 4 or 5 major corporations that control everything, all the media. And so including the internet. I mean, obviously they're merging and acquiring all these other outlets. And so, I mean, what's the next one to happen? I think Netflix is going to merge with Comcast.
Right.
And then
Net neutrality.
and Time Warner is going to merge with, geez, I can't even keep track anymore, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, and so, I mean, because I don't watch that crap anymore. I tell you.
Gotta shut out the poison. Gotta turn that shit off.
Saving money on your cable bill by not having one. It's just that my whole paradigm has shifted since I stopped watching Rachel Maddow and Keith Olbermann on MSNBC, and stopped listening to other so-called liberal talk radio hosts, and started reading. I mean, real understanding of what was going on in the world requires reading. And what's most frightening about our society is we're becoming an image-based society. No one reads anymore.
Oh, you just totally set up a perfect segue for me. But continue that thought real quick.
No, go for it, man. I don't want to step on a clip.
Well, the next clip that we need to play then is Ted Rall. And this is a total jog of the memory because over a year ago, somewhere around the 7th of January 2013, we had on this program Ted Rall for a very interesting conversation, which I enjoyed very much. And I have not revisited that conversation basically since we did it. And I did just a little bit last week when we were picking out some clips to play that we wanted to share with folks. And this was really interesting. And if you don't know, Ted Rall is a cartoonist. He is an American syndicated cartoonist and illustrator and author. He's an author. He's got books, political cartoon books and stuff, comic books and stuff. And he appears in like a comic strip format in over like 100 newspapers around the United States. He was president of the Association of American Editorial Cartoonists from 2008 to 2009, and he basically draws like 3 cartoons a week for syndication, illustrates on a freelance basis, writes a syndicated column, and all sorts of things.
I saw him speak at the Occupy DC movement just before Chris Hedges came on, but yeah, actually I think he introduced Chris Hedges.
Oh, no shit. Well, that's great because then we can go to the Chris Hedges clip that you interviewed Chris Hedges at that protest. Perfect.
2011. Yeah,
perfect.
Let's hear Ted Rall.
So here's Ted Rall. And listen to this. This is a long clip. This is 2 minutes, but I don't want to edit it. And this is good stuff. This clip is from Filter Free Radio on over a year ago interviewing Ted Rall, and this is some good stuff. What's it going to take for us, to get these elected officials who are supposed to be representing us? That's their really purpose. What's it going to take to get them to actually stand up and be definitive and defy their our stance instead of just cowing over as usual?
Well, to be honest, nothing's going to work within this system. And in fact, I came to that conclusion a few years back. In fact, for me, I gave up on the system when Obama announced his first cabinet back in December of 2008, and there wasn't a single liberal, forget about a progressive, forget about a lefty, but there wasn't even a single liberal on a cabinet that was taking office in the middle of the greatest crisis of capitalism in history. The subprime mortgage meltdown, the economy had started to collapse in September of 2008, and you'd expect to see, just for not even political reasons, just for practical reasons, someone like Paul Krugman, who is one of the people who was actually right about things, be not rewarded, but just called upon for his advice by a Democratic administration winning office in a landslide victory over the Republicans. And yet, there wasn't one. And you could really just tell at that point that even the old Bill Clinton accommodationism is to the left of Barack Obama. So for me, I think that the two-party duopoly is completely worthless and completely just serves corporate and capitalist slave masters and needs to be done away with completely. I mean, but one of the things that I do as a commentator is to try to point out all the hypocrisies and disappointments that most people try to put behind them in order to be able to live with themselves and their voting decisions. But people need to stop thinking about the Democrats as a viable option for political change, because they just aren't. They were at one time able to affect real change, like during FDR and under LBJ. But those days are over, and they're not coming back.
Right.
So what do we do then?
Well, I think, ultimately what is going to be needed is a revolution to overthrow this government. But we're not there yet. You need to have a movement. You need to have a political party. You need to have an organization that's able to take power. At this point in the United States, we're starting at ground zero. We don't have a left. There's literally no left. And I don't mean like, we have a bad left, a lame left. I mean, there is no left.
So I'm just going to stop the clip there because it goes on and it's fantastic. And if you want to hear the whole interview, it's on our website, just like every single other interview we've ever done on this show. The entire interview, always on the website. Click on the highlights page, click on my blog, click on Scott's blog. You have to kind of snoop through the website a little bit to find the goods in there, but they're in there. And that was one of them.
Left.
There's no left. There is no left.
That was that's funny because that was a direct clip or direct quote from Slavoj Žižek in his I don't know, it was one of the videos I posted on my video blog of the Slavoj Žižek giving one of his lectures about he wrote a 500-page book called Living in the End Times, which man, is that a heavy read. But because he's a didactic Hegelian philosopher, so and with a thick Russian accent, but or Lithuanian accent. But his whole point is that there is no left. You have to start from scratch. There's no organizations. There's no union halls. There's no labor movement. There's no movements. There's nothing. There's no civil rights movement. There's nothing. You have to really start from the ground up, and that just means organizing. That means you and I need to get out there and talk to our neighbors and our friends and our family and co-opt them into organizing a protest.
What? I gotta go outside? It's like
By the way, it's 19 degrees out right here.
This sunny thing is out there, and I can't. No. Yeah, dude, I'm surprised you're able to join me live right now. I mean, you got a foot of snow outside right now, don't you?
There's about 6 inches, but it's 18 degrees out, and it's supposed to get down to the single digits tonight. So everything's pretty slippery. I just hope we don't lose power.
Yeah.
Knock on wood. But
dude.
The point is that it's a struggle, it's a work, it's a sacrifice, and sacrifice it is. And it's not a happy thing. It's not a but the thing is, it gives you hope. It provides fulfillment. And it's reaffirming. To reaffirm, if all you accomplish by showing up at a protest or by trying to organize or trying to build community. To do a protest or to do some sort of sit-in or strike or whatever it is you want to do to resist. I mean, the key word here is resist. If all you do is to inform others and have them pass the word along and to maybe go to a gathering where you are reaffirmed, that is something. That's better than sitting around watching the corporate media and feeling depressed about it, because that's obviously not going to accomplish anything.
And that's what I was doing this morning.
Did you watch your corporate media?
That's exactly what I was doing this morning.
Yeah, yelling at the television.
If you follow Filter Free Radio on Twitter, and somewhere around 10 a.m., like 8 a.m., 9 a.m. Pacific time, all of a sudden the Filter Free Radio Twitter feed just starts bashing the Oscars. Fuck the Oscars. Fuck celebrity culture. This is a bunch of horse shit. Get over it, people. How many? Yeah. I mean, the day after, we're still talking about what they were wearing. Give me a freaking break. I mean. But I understand the corporate media cannot talk about the issues. They cannot tell the truth. They must keep it filled with fluff.
Fundamentally antithetical to their existence. I mean, you can't. They're not. That's why you can't have How many times has Noam Chomsky been on MSNBC?
Not
How many times
once.
Chris Hedges? Never.
Not
Cornell,
once.
Yeah, I mean, you can't. They won't.
Maybe
you can't
once.
have
I don't know.
No, he's never ever been on there. There's a reason for that, and it's because of just go on there and point out the fundamental hypocrisy and the flaw of the existence of these organizations, and it's the whole force or fraud. That's the whole George Orwell. When he says that. I love George Orwell. Isn't it amazing how, by the way, as a tangent, that when you go back in history and you read these now dead, rebels or just intellectuals, authors and activists, and you go back and you read about them and what they had to say, how that shit is so true today. It's like there's nothing new under the sun.
Right.
And so George Orwell said that when institutions no longer function, and he was, of course, speaking about, I think at this time, any institution, and this applies nowadays. This is Chris Hedges used this in his book Death of the Liberal Class, when he itemized the dead liberal institutions like the church, the universities, the labor movement,
which
Democratic
used to
Party.
function as pillars of the left.
Right, and all these so-called pillars of the left that no longer exist, they really are only serving their own interests at this point to maintain the status quo in their own existence. And so, to quote George Orwell, when the institutions no longer function in the manner for which they were established, that succeed in clinging to power by force or by fraud, and soon force is all our elites will have left. Because
the fraud is being exposed.
Yeah, that's our job here, is to expose the fraud, and it's not comfortable. It's really just it's hard to tell people that their worldview is and that their understanding of our society as a whole is wrong. I mean, no one wants to be wrong. Right. It's really and that comes from being critically self-aware and examining oneself. And we're all hypocrites. We all have our issues. We all struggle with our day-to-day demons.
I just went and helped buy a new truck today. Not a new to us. Of course, I don't have money to buy a new car. I'd never ever buy a new car. That's just, anyways, talk about tangents. But yeah, I mean, we are all hypocrites. I mean, and it's not an electric hybrid. Okay, I'm sorry, but it is.
That's the whole thing. That's and that brings us to the Derek Jensen clip.
Right.
If you want to pop that in, where he says, it's a minute long. Do you have it ready?
I don't have it ready, and we don't actually have time before the break, but we can get it ready, and we'll come back next hour, and we will tear it up.
Oh, sure. Okay. You want to run the break then?
Yeah, sure. Sounds good, man. And again, I'll just say that doing a week of Nicole Sandler show and filling in on Talking Left, Scott, man, you didn't get to say too much, and I love your input, dude, and I love you being able to do the show with me on Mondays, and so I just want you to tell it like it is, and so I'm going to let you do your thing a little bit. I want our listeners to do their thing. Call in, make your voice heard. The comment line is open, 503-746-TALK, 503-746-8255. Callers, go to the front of the line. We will take your calls. We will play more clips. We will get into it. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. FilterFreeRadio.com.
That's just what they'll be expecting us to do.
Hey friends, Jacob Dean here with exciting news. You can now hear my show, Filter Free Radio, on the free Stitcher mobile app. Just download the free Stitcher app from Stitcher.com or in the App Store and search for Filter Free Radio. That's all there is to it. No syncing, no taking up memory on your device. Just Filter Free Radio on demand for you on the go. Plus, you can rate and review Filter Free Radio on Stitcher. The more you rate, review, and share us, the higher we will rank on Stitcher, and that means the more people will discover Filter Free Radio. It's never been easier to enjoy Filter Free Radio and help us spread the word. So download the free Stitcher app, search for Filter Free Radio, and start benefiting from unfiltered radical truth-telling anytime, anywhere. Thanks, and keep up the good fight.
This is Liberal Justice Radio.
It's not real. It's just a computer-generated fantasy.
Liberal Justice Radio on TuneIn and A Online Radio.
Tune in to Liberal Justice Radio on the TuneIn app and tunein.com.
Hi, this is Kenny Pick, founder of Liberal Justice Radio, and I wanted to take a few minutes to let you know about our schedule here. First and foremost, on Mondays, you can check out Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott on Filter Free Radio, live from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern. Jacob and Scott give you unfiltered news, opinion, and analysis on stories that the mainstream media won't touch with a 10-foot pole. It's a fantastic show that you won't want to miss. Then on Tuesdays, there's my show, Turn Up the Night with Kenny Pick. I have many co-hosts, Tom, Deba, Matt, Kim, and Pete on Tuesdays. That's 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern. We have lots of laughs. We talk about politics. We talk about news. We talk about all kinds of stuff. You'll love it. We also have a Friday show, but we'll get to that momentarily. We're proud to announce that we have a brand new addition to our live family, and that's the Bradcast, of course, hosted by the world-renowned Brad Friedman of the Brad Blog and the Green News Report. And we're very happy to have him on from 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern every Wednesday. Then Thursdays, well, everybody gets the night off for good behavior. Then Friday comes back around, and yeah, that's right, Turn Up the Night is back. It's me, Tom, Deba, and Matt back for more fun. And again, that's Fridays live from 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern. Then Saturdays, from 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern, we have my good friend Adam Hebert with Mic Check Radio. You can check out him and his hosts, Rob and Wes. They talk politics, they talk geek culture, they talk science, and again, lots of laughs from those guys too. And again, that's Saturdays from 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern. That's when the shows are live. We encourage you to listen 24 hours a day if you humanly can. We would love that. That's Filter Free Radio, live every Monday from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern. Turn Up the Night with Kenny Pick, live from 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays. On Wednesdays, the Bradcast, live from 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern. Thursdays, we're off. Fridays, we're back with more Turn Up the Night from 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern. And then on Saturdays, it's Mic Check Radio, live from 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern. Nothing yet on Sunday, but you never know. We might throw a curveball. So please enjoy our live shows and the recent rebroadcasts that we run 24/7. And find out how to get in touch with us. Let us know how you're listening to Liberal Justice Radio and what you think of the programming and what you'd like to hear more of.
Liberal Justice Radio on the TuneIn app and tunein.com.
Filter Free Radio.
Filter Free Radio.
Filter Free Radio with Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott.
Jacob Dean.
With Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott.
I really hope, just for the sake of your privacy, that you didn't get a new computer from Amazon for Christmas. This is really disturbing. The NSA's been running around, don't buy any computers from China. They might be putting spyware and bugs in your computers before you get them so they can spy on you. Come buy computers from us here in America.
Filter Free Radio with Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott.
The good old US of A and the NSA wants to watch what you're doing all of the time, and they don't care about your constitutional rights. Just keep that in mind.
FilterFreeRadio.com.
You never know who or what you'll hear when you listen to The Nicole Sandler Show at RadioOrNot.com.
Greg Palast, I realized as we were talking that actually we were supposed to do this on Wednesday. So thank you so much for bearing with me.
Well, I am thrilled that we're doing that. You've jumped the other characters. Because, Nicole, I just think that your show is brilliant. And I want to thank you because my stuff may be prime time in Britain. But here, I keep slamming into the electronic Berlin Wall, and you have snuck me across and into the information stream. And I hope that your listeners are aware of how important and precious your program is. So I want to thank you.
The Nicole Sandler Show, live Monday through Thursdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, or podcast anytime at RadioOrNot.com.
The hell? Are you stuck at home on a Saturday night with nothing to do again?
I can't take it anymore!
Then join me, my co-hosts, and my guests every Saturday evening for Mic Check Radio with Adam Hebert. Okay. Together we'll discuss the big news of the week from entertainment and politics, talk about the issues that are on your mind, and hey, we'll even talk about general stupidity and jackassery from the American right.
You stupid jackass!
So join me every Saturday evening, 6 to 9 p.m. Central at my Ustream home, Mic Check Radio. Come on in, it'll be loads of fun.
Gee, I sure hope there's a happy ending. I love a happy ending.
Filter Free Radio with Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott. Voices united for the 99%. FilterFreeRadio.com.
And welcome back to the second hour. It's episode 107. We're broadcasting live March 3rd, 2014 on our website, FilterFreeRadio.com. We're live on the home of Nicole Sandler, RadioOrNot.com, and streaming live on TuneIn, on the TuneIn app, and A Online Radio on Liberal Justice Radio. You can find links to all of that, all of our good friends, all of the news sources that we like to read. We need to get a link up to theintercept.org, but there's lots of great links to check out at FilterFreeRadio.com, as well as our complete archives, all of our podcasts, all of our news, all of the previous interviews that we've ever done on this show, and all that good stuff. It's all at the website, and a new website is coming. I'm so excited. Thanks first and foremost to the one and only Shano of Talking Left. If it wasn't for Shano, we wouldn't have our website, and we've got a new one coming. Thanks again to Shano, so super excited. Stay tuned. I'm pumped, you know. Even though I'm a little tired right now, I'm really pumped for the new website, trust me. And you should be too. It's going to be very interactive. It's going to be, you can vote on stuff. We're going to have a forum. We're going to have a message board. All that good stuff. So for this hour, I want to invite phone calls. Anything you want to talk about? You want to talk about some of your Filter Free Radio favorite clips, moments, what you like about the show? You want to call in and tell us we're full of shit? I would love to hear from you. 503-746-TALK. 503.
You're so full of shit.
You're so full of shit. 503-746-TALK. And please, I mean, keep me in line, keep me honest. I know nothing. I'm trying to learn, right? It's a learning process.
I know nothing.
And I know nothing. I say nothing. And it's a learning process. And I learn by reading, I learn by interviewing, I learn by growing, I learn by doing the show with Scott. And one of the cool things that we've done on this show is try to learn together and try to get active and participate. And I want to start with a clip that I often forget about. We talk a lot about Chris Hedges. We play a lot of Chris Hedges. We read a lot of Chris Hedges. We link to a lot of Chris Hedges. We talk about all the time about how we want to get
active. He is the most active intellectual in terms of it. He writes a weekly article. He gives speeches. He does debates. I mean, he's probably the most public figure in the. I don't even know what label you put on him, but in the individuals who actually challenge the status quo, he's probably the most active. I mean, Noam Chomsky is like 80-something. Other people are actually working as full-time professors, and so Hedges' job is essentially, to be an outside agitator, as who's our favorite?
Saul Alinsky.
There we go, Saul Alinsky. He's essentially the professional outside agitator. So he is the most quotable and most well-read. He does consistently read and do interviews and book reports and these things. And so it's not that we, idolize him so much as the words he says, as the fact that he is reporting on and giving voice to those who otherwise are silent and are not able to have media outlets or articles to write and things like that. So his most recent article this week is outstanding. I encourage people to read it. But anyway, back to the clips. You were going to play a Derek Jensen clip, weren't you?
Well, yeah, I'll get there. But I want to play a Chris Hedges clip, and I want to start with a really cool clip. We played a clip earlier of an interview that we did on this program. This is also an interview that we did on this program. This is you interviewing Chris Hedges at the Stop the Machine October 2011, October 6th, 2011 protest. Do you want to, kind of?
That was the very first day of the. It's interesting. Kevin Zeese and Margaret Flowers organized this Stop the Machine, and they were going to occupy D.C. And they organized it and promoted it and published it as October 6th, 2013, and then. Occupy Wall Street beat them to it, and by 2 weeks or whatever.
Right.
Which is funny because they've been published.
And we were there. It was the first October 1st, 2011 was day one of Occupy DC, and we were there.
Oh, that's right. It was 1 week. Okay, yeah. So anyway, so long story short, they had this really well organized occupation of Freedom Plaza, which is on Pennsylvania Avenue, directly between the White House and the Congress, in the state. I mean, it's the Capitol building, and so they had a stage set up, and they had ongoing speakers and musicians, and it was just a good gathering. And Chris Hedges was there to speak, along with Ted Rall, and many others, and Medea Benjamin, and many other activists. And so Hedges was there, and I basically stalked his ass and got a chance to get 5 minutes of his time. I think I made him a little uncomfortable, but it was this creepy tall guy coming up on me in the dark, because it was dark out, with a microphone hanging, like he's standing there talking to somebody else, and I walk up with my microphone all the way out, arm extended, like, what's he saying? And he's looking at me like, what the fuck is this guy?
Yeah, journalism ethics.
Yeah, I had no
we
idea
had we talked about that, and we had a conversation after the show.
Like, you can't stick a microphone in someone's
You don't just
face
walk up
without
recording
introducing
someone.
yourself.
No, you introduce yourself. Say, hey, I'm a huge fan of you, Chris Hedges. I've read your books.
Yeah.
We talk about you on the show. Can I have an interview? And then you start recording.
Yeah,
but it's
right.
all good
Yeah,
because he still talked to you.
Yeah, which is ironic. But anyway, so I got 5 minutes of his time, which is cool. But this is October 6, 2011.
Here you go. Scott Mann from Filter Free Radio interviewing Chris Hedges at the protest. Show up, get active, be the media. Here you go.
With some shows we start with, we play audio clips of you, and the question I wanted to really ask you this time, really, where do you see the country in about 5 years or so?
Well, if we don't break the back of the corporate state, we're finished. I mean, just in terms of the environment alone.
Yeah.
That it has that kind of urgency. So either we get out and wrest the country back from the hands of psychopaths, or they'll make the ecosystem unfit for human habitation and turn us all into serfs.
Neo-feudalism.
Well, they're pretty far advanced. I mean, look at what's happened to the working class in the United States.
I've been unemployed for 2.5 years, and I have a college degree.
Right. Well, you're not alone, unfortunately.
Right. How do you manage to stay optimistic? I mean, my problem is I tell people and inform people the news that I've learned from reading your books and other things. They just get depressed and overwhelmed, and they don't want to hear it. And how do I get through to those people?
Well, that's the problem, So then what do they watch, Oprah? I don't
The
know.
Oscars.
The fact is, we better wake up to how serious the crisis is, because we owe it. I mean, I have kids. I owe it to my kids.
I try and coerce my friends into action, and they say, well, nothing's going to happen in our lifetime. And I listen to you, and you say things like, well, it's not going to happen in our lifetime, which is a real demotivator.
Yeah, but see, the thing is, if we fall into the emotional highs and lows of American political life, then we're susceptible to falling into cynicism and despair. We don't want to do that. We have to recognize how bad it is, and then once we swallow that bitter pill, fight back. But by pretending that things are better than they are, or that everything is going to be wonderful within a year, is to be self-deluded.
There you go. That was me, by the way, yelling in the background while I was playing that clip. They're watching the Oscars now. That's what they're watching. They're watching the Oscars now.
Yeah, right. You can hear the band playing in the background too.
Emma's Revolution. That was Occupy the
yeah.
USA by Emma's Revolution.
Oh, you recognize the song even? That's
yeah,
good.
I used to play that as a bumper on Tom Hartman all the time. Good stuff.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, they're just a DC duo who write songs about resistance, which is what we need. We need the arts. We need all these institutions to come together, and arts. And Hedges, of course, talks about this too. It's one of the things that makes the arts and not just music, but music. And he said all the revolutionaries that he covered when he covered El Salvador always travel with theater groups and musicians, because the arts have the ability to give voice, to convey messages to people in a much more formidable manner than just talking about it or telling them. And it's sort of like that's what made Woody Guthrie so great. Was his during the Depression was he giving voice to those who were suffering and telling stories that resonate with people. And so, but yeah, that interview with Hedges was something, man. It it's the whole reality versus being positive and negative. I mean, the whole notion that you're a pessimist or you're just negative. Well, it's just a false paradigm. There is no positive or negative. I mean, there is to a certain degree, but the point is that to take a Pollyanna-ish worldview and to say, well, to just sort of shut out the negativity is to really ignore what's really happening, because there's a lot of negativity going on. And so to be able to grasp that harsh, negative reality and to respond positively in a rational manner is what's necessary. I mean, we cannot expect to respond rationally to something that we're not even aware of. I mean, it's the whole Noam Chomsky's mantra of electoral politics are uninformed people making irrational decisions. And that's what we are as a society. We have just uninformed people making irrational decisions on a day-to-day basis in terms of everyday aspects of their lives. And so to get through to everybody on the masses, if you will, on an individual basis, to grasp the need for change, the need for paradigm shifts, the need to radically alter our current existence, it's tough, man. You know, you're talking about making people who are talking about afflicting the comfortable and comforting the afflicted. And
yeah. Well, you went to something really good there. And matter of fact, let's dive into that. This is a fantastic set of clips, 3 or 4 here of Noam Chomsky, and it's a brilliant point, and it's something that we should talk about in this conversation of what is Filter Free Radio about, what do we care about, what's our purpose, who are we reading? We're reading Noam Chomsky, and he's saying things like what Scott just said, and the idea of, I mean, who benefits from you being uninformed, making irrational decisions? Think about it.
Elections have for a long time been pretty much public relations extravaganzas. They only marginally deal with issues. They're mostly show. They're run by the public relations industry. It has a goal: create a society in which uninformed people make irrational decisions. That's essentially the structure of presidential campaigns.
And it is the goal of marketing. It's the goal of propaganda. And you see the capitalism corporate takeover of everything and marketing and takeover of everything. That's why this goal is so important to them. Here's the next part of that clip.
If you take an economics course, you're taught that the markets are based on informed consumers making rational choices. But anyone who's ever looked at a television ad knows that the goal of those who structure the market is to create uninformed consumers who make irrational choices.
And that's not how a thriving democracy works. That's not how a healthy democracy, small d democracy, works. And this is the next clip here in this group, Noam Chomsky talking about how real democracy works. This is how it's supposed to work.
In a functioning democracy, the way it would work is that people in a town would get together, have town meetings, and try to work out the policies that they would like to see implemented, some range of policies that they think are significant. And they would either select their own representatives, or else if some outsider wanted to be their representative, let's say a presidential candidate, he or she would be permitted to come to town and not to talk to the people, but to listen to them.
What a radical difference that is. And here's...
I love how you flip it on its head, right?
Right. Well, and here's part 2. This is part 2 of Noam Chomsky, how the system is supposed to work, right? If elections were actually like to be, if the inside the game was like not a completely rigged, corrupted game, and we were going to try to like correct the inside game a little bit, this is how the real democracy is supposed to work. Back to Noam Chomsky.
The next step is when you go into the electoral campaign itself, and what you have is by now multi-billion-dollar campaigns based heavily on advertising, and advertising has its usual goals, not to inform people, but to delude them into following certain paths. And anyone who's paid attention to a presidential campaign sees this all the time.
And it's so obvious, isn't it? It's so obvious that that's what's going on. You know, it's just
that's the whole corporatization of everything. I mean, that's if you go back and read Edward Bernays' propaganda book and understand the role of marketing and the fact that Obama's campaign won Marketer of the Year by Advertising Age, you know, sort of the industry trade magazine that pats itself on the back and acknowledges its own individuals for their successes. The fact that his campaign was an advertising success basically tells us that we were sold a bill of goods. Yeah. I mean, just in that whole premise alone.
I love the chat room, by the way. It's a great conversation going on at radioornot.com. Free, all free, by the way. You don't have to pay anything.
And the internet should be free too, by the way. I don't want you to ever have to pay to watch this show or to participate in the program. Now, at some point, we're going to get up a thing that if you're so willing to donate to us voluntarily to help the sustainability of the program, that's a different thing, and that's coming soon. But I don't want you to ever have to pay to access this program. And the internet should be free, and that's a whole different conversation. One that we should have, and one to talk about organizing a nonviolent, successful social movement in this country in this day and age around free internet for all. It's the commons. We want to give our future a chance, right? Let the kids log online and learn something, and not just watch corporate news on broadcast television or broadcast radio, commercial radio, which is,
So at some point in this conversation, we should get to solutions.
Right. Okay. That's a good point. And so...
it's important to educate and be aware and understand. But then that's what becomes a debilitating and depressing aspect of it all, where there was probably a year or two in my life not too long ago where I was just, paralyzed, because I'm like, oh God, it's so bleak, and you really grasp the what seems like insurmountable odds, and you don't have an understanding of how to combat and how to actually do something about it. It's paralyzing, man. And it's really depressing.
I've got a lot of clips on how we can create change and not to be paralyzed. Here's a clip from Gene Sharp. This is a video from... All right. This is a clip from a video on Skeptical Scott's blog, The Power and Potential of Nonviolent Struggle by Gene Sharp. And yes, we can make a difference. We can create change. And this is part of the solutions, providing the means about how we can make a difference.
This type of change is a process in which people are acting to shape the present and simultaneously are increasing their ability to determine their future. This route is no panacea. There is no easy path. There is no guaranteed safety. There is no assurance of success in every respect and on each occasion. However, the possibility exists that we can deliberately contribute to the development of a new stage of human history. We can resolve acute problems with which we have been so long confronted. We can be on the verge of a new departure of human capacities, which we can develop if we wish, in order that people can regain, or perhaps for many, to achieve for the first time, the capacity to control their own destinies.
We do have the capacity to control our own destiny. We just have to show up and start making it happen. We just got to start doing something. Well, what should we be doing? Well, that's a great question, because the answer varies. The answer varies widely. It depends on all sorts of aspects of the situation. It depends on your ability and what you can do and what is your passion and what are you able to do about it. And there's all sorts of things. We've done an expose on Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals and on Gene Sharp's From Dictatorship to Democracy. And it's pragmatic steps for real change, right? And the point is, and we just did the previous episode of the show, Successful Social Movements. Bill Moyer, a 1987 essay, The 8 Stages of Successful Social Movements. The point is it's not always the same. I can't just say, go show up at a protest, because that's a really very small part of the whole bigger plan. It's not just showing up at the protest or just writing a song or just making a website or just hosting an online truth-telling program. It's not just that. It's all of it together.
It's living it. Yeah. That's the one thing that I learned from Hedges' articles is that resistance works on 2 tracks. First, you have to build alternatives to the current system. And then secondly, you have to bring down the current system. And so, it's difficult.
That's perfect. Let me play. I've got 2 clips talking about that from Chris Hedges. This is a clip from when Chris Hedges was speaking at the Green Party convention in New Jersey
Yeah, he bashes the Green Party, even though he's a member. It's great.
Right. And so it's like, stop beating up on me for being a Democrat. Okay, let's go beat up on the Green Party a little bit. Green Party, get off of it. I mean, electoral politics is not the point, and you're never going to win anyways. It's about waking the people up, mobilizing the people. And the Green Party, as well as the Democratic Party, doesn't spend enough time dealing in the concrete, dealing in things that actually matter. Here we are talking about what fashion the Oscar people are wearing. Who gives a shit? And this is a clip of Chris Hedges from that conversation, the Green Party, New Jersey, last year, and talking about creating the logistics. We have to actually create the means for which people can get active. We can't just expect the alternative to be there for us to transition onto from the status quo. We have to create that alternative so we can transition. And this is talking about how we get active. What are some of the things that we can be doing? One of them is the food bus, and I'm digging it. Food bus, fueling the movement since 2013. Here's Chris Hedges.
I think that we have to turn away from the enticement of running candidates here, running candidates there, having seminars on this topic or that topic. I just think it's going to go nowhere. I think we have to begin to turn and do a complete about-face and focus solely on what is absolutely concrete. For example, if I was running the Green Party, and I have no intention of ever running any party, I would put all of my energy into building a food bus so that when there were acts of civil disobedience, whether that is against the Keystone Pipeline, whether that is students who finally decide that they have had enough of the debt peonage, that of course is a long history in this country of being a very effective form of political control, as any African American can tell you. You arrive and essentially are handing out, as we did in Zuccotti Park, bagels with peanut butter on them and coffee. I think that is the only way that we are going to build a movement, and that is to those of us who care about challenging this system, begin to create logistics by which resistance is possible.
Bingo. I've been talking with a very good friend of ours and chat room member, Snark Y2K, about some really interesting ideas on doing just that. I mean, something that I could be doing is showing up at protests and singing folk songs with the guitar and making pancakes for the protesters. You know what I'm saying? The pancake wagon. Yeah. Stark in the chat room, RadioNot.com, saying, I want to do the pancake gig. You guys ready to get the pancake wagon going? I'm digging it.
I like that.
It's a great idea.
It's cheap and easy to feed people, too.
And here's the second part of that Chris Hedges thought is, again, the movements lack the logistical support. There is no pancake wagon right now at the Portland protest. And so there isn't much Portland protesters showing up because there's no food there, right? Or there's no babes there, right? So movements lack logistical support. We have to create the logistics for the movements to exist. And this is one of the key first steps that we can do to get active, to show up, and to make change happen right here, right now.
And when Zuccotti Park was wiped out, I knew precisely what the state was doing. And let's be clear who was doing it. His name is Barack Obama. It was a coordinated effort out of Washington to erase the encampments. And that was denying the opposition, the first effective opposition against corporate power, a logistical base with which they could work from. And I think one of the most important acts of civil disobedience underway is the attempt to block the southern leg of the Keystone XL pipeline. Let's not delude ourselves. Barack Obama has every intention of building the northern leg. And if you talk to people, activists down there, what is it that they lack? They lack logistical support.
Exactly. Bingo. So what are we going to do about it? What are you and I going to do about it? How are we going to make a difference about it? What are we going to do about it? How are we going to make a difference? What part of the logistics are you going to be participating in? And that's the beauty of resistance, because all resistance is local. And this is why we need to be showing up locally and participating locally, and also why
You know, we need to pursue our passions. This is why we're all passionate about different issues. And you should follow your passion and get active, right? And only you know how to do that, right? Only you know how to put that equation together for you. So let's come back. We'll take a short break. We'll continue the conversation and try to put other equations together. FilterFreeRadio.com. We'll be right back. Hey friends, Jacob Dean here with exciting news. You can now hear my show, Filter Free Radio, on the free Stitcher mobile app. Just download the free Stitcher app from Stitcher.com or in the App Store and search for Filter Free Radio. That's all there is to it. No syncing, no taking up memory on your device. Just Filter Free Radio on demand for you on the go. Plus, you can rate and review Filter Free Radio on Stitcher. The more you rate, review, and share us, the higher we will rank on Stitcher, and that means the more people will discover Filter Free Radio. It's never been easier to enjoy Filter Free Radio and help us spread the word. So download the free Stitcher app, search for Filter Free Radio, and start benefiting from unfiltered radical truth-telling anytime, anywhere. Thanks, and keep up the good fight.
We got no plans at all. Evil man's always transcending. Fighter like sheep, swallow everything. Always simpletons or pretending.
This is your moment of clarity from LeeCamp.net. 20 years ago on this very day, the world lost one of our best philosophers. He was only 32. And he was a man who thought outside the box, doubted all, questioned everything, and forced audiences to think for themselves rather than choke down the pre-programmed mediocrity dumped in their faces on a daily basis, stupidity dressed up as celebrity, intellectual degradation disguised as cultural masturbation. His name was Bill Hicks, and he was a comedian. In 1994, we lost one of the few people who was telling audiences the truth. Here's one of his most famous clips.
The world is like a ride at an amusement park, and when you choose to go on it, you think it's real, because that's how powerful our minds are. And the ride goes up and down and round and round. It has thrills and chills, and it's very brightly colored, and it's very loud, and it's fun for a while. Some people have been on the ride for a long time, and they begin to question, is this real, or is this just a ride? And other people have remembered, and they come back to us, and they say, hey, don't worry, don't be afraid, ever, because this is just a ride. And we kill those people. Shut him up. We have a lot invested in this ride. Shut him up. But it doesn't matter because it's just a ride. And we can change it anytime we want. It's only a choice. No effort, no work, no job, no savings of money. A choice right now between fear and love. Here's what we can do to change the world right now to a better ride. Take all that money we spend on weapons and defense each year and instead spend it feeding, clothing, and educating the poor of the world, which it would many times over, not one human being excluded, and we can explore space together, both inner and outer, forever in peace.
As you might imagine, America had little use for such a truth teller. Hicks was not nearly as well known in the U.S. as he was in the U.K., and his final appearance on The Late Show with David Letterman wasn't even aired, because this joke was considered too tough for adult viewers to process.
You know, if you're really pro-life, do me a favor. Don't lock arms and block med clinics, okay? If you're so pro-life, do me a favor. Lock arms and block cemeteries, okay? Let's see how committed you are to this idea. She can't come in. She was 98. She was hit by a bus. There's options.
But what wowed me the most when I first came upon his comedy as a teenager was how fucking prescient he was. His criticisms of the U.S. military, the presidency, pop culture, and more didn't just cut straight to the bone, surgically dissecting the topic at hand. They also perfectly predicted future events. I remember listening to his bit about the first Iraq War and the first George Bush and thinking, it's all the same now. Why didn't we fucking listen to this guy? So this is my tribute to a groundbreaking comedian who inspired me and so many others. Here are a few words from his brother Steve Hicks when I interviewed him on the Moment of Clarity podcast about a year ago.
I mean, a lot of people and comedians tell the truth, you know, a lot of them do.
But Bill, I think what he added to it, and this is just my opinion, and I'm his proud older brother, so people can take it with a grain of salt. But I think that goodness and that heart also came through, and that's what a lot of the connection is, I believe, is that they're connecting with his soul and with his heart and not just with his words. And to this day, when we meet people, what we usually hear is people don't say, Bill was so funny. What they say is, Bill Hicks changed my life. And it's just, that's incredible to hear. It's just transcended normal comedy.
That's been your moment of clarity. I'll post the entire half-hour interview with Steve Hicks on my YouTube channel, hopefully tomorrow. I'll also put links to Bill Hicks' full comedy specials in the description. Finally, I'm taping my first new comedy special in 2 years on Sunday, March 16th in New York City at Bowery Electric. The link for the tickets is in the description to this video. Also, you can go to leecamp.net to get tickets. The show is almost sold out. However, we've added a second show on March 17th, St. Patrick's Day. Hope you can make it. Keep fighting.
Let's roll, never get their control. They got their money, but we got our soul. Let's roll, never get their control. They got their money.
Filter Free Radio.
Filter Free Radio. Filter Free Radio with Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott.
Jacob Dean. With Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott.
Many activists, myself in the beginning included, mistakenly think that when we're protesting that our target is the government or our target is this corporation, when in fact the real target of our activism is mobilizing the people.
Filter Free Radio with Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott.
You're basically evangelizing. You're trying to get more people on your side to reach a critical mass to bring about real change.
FilterFreeRadio.com.
Live 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern. FilterFreeRadio.com.
I don't need you. I got money.
If you're not rich, blame yourself.
Oh boy, I'm rich!
Well, for once, the rich white man is in control.
I quit my job. We're rich now. I don't need to be working.
When I get my hands on that money...
Rich people are just poor people with money. What's the difference? Rich people are just poor people with money.
The rich are different. Because when you have that much money, then human beings become disposable. Even friends and family become disposable and are replaced. And when the rich take absolute power, then the citizens become disposable, which is in essence what's happened.
Welcome back to the show, broadcasting live. It is Filter Free Radio. So good to be with you on our website, filterfreeradio.com. Also, radioornot.com. Broadcasting live on the home of Nicole Sandler. It was so cool to fill in for a week there with you on radioornot.com. Had a lot of fun doing it. And we're also live on Liberal Justice Radio, thanks to our good friend Kenny Pick, the one, the only Mr. Kenny Pick of Turn Up the Night. Check out kennypick.com. Kenny's got us live on Liberal Justice Radio on the TuneIn app and tunein.com. Thank you, man. Always appreciate it. And I want to pick up the conversation, actually, and continue play some of Scott and I's favorite clips here and go through and just have a filter-free conversation, right? And picking up on what Lee Camp... Yeah, filter-free radio, free-for-all. We'll take your calls. Anything you want to talk about, callers go to the front of the line. It's a democracy. Participate. 503-746-TALK. 503-746-8255. Or you can Skype in for free. The name is Jacob_Dean. It's all one word, lowercase. And just to pick up on what Lee Camp was talking about, it is the 20th year since we've lost Bill Hicks. And one of my favorite clips to play on on our program, we played it a lot, and no different than what Lee Camp was playing. Bill Hicks telling the truth and talking about politics here. Here you go.
There's no fucking hope in that guy. They're all the same. I'll show you politics in America. Here it is, right here. I think the puppet on the right shares my beliefs. I think the puppet on the left is more to my liking. Hey, wait a minute. There's one guy holding up both puppets. Shut up. Go back to bed, America. Your government is in control. Here's Love Connection. Watch this and get fat and stupid. By the way, keep drinking beer, you fucking morons.
There you go. Good stuff, right? And
yeah, that's amazing. And he was a chain smoker too, which I think is ultimately what killed him. Irony of all ironies, right?
Sure. And today we have some comedians willing to get into the political realm and tell the truth. That's why we play Lee Camp on this program every week. We play Lee Camp's Moment of Clarity. We got a link to leecamp.net on our website. And I also love lots of stand-up comedians. I love to play this clip from Christopher.
Chris Rock.
What?
I was gonna say Chris Rock. Never mind. Sorry.
Oh yeah, Chris Rock. Well, shit. That's a perfect one. I was going to play Christopher Titus, but I want to get Chris Rock in here too, because the truth is it's funny and it's the truth, right? Here's Chris Rock telling it like it is on the minimum wage. If you make a minimum wage, listen to this.
Fucking, I did a lot of shit before I got into comedy, man. I used to work at McDonald's. Making minimum wage, man. You know what it means when they pay you minimum wage? It means they don't give a fuck about you, okay? They don't care about your Christmas. They don't care if your kids got shoes on. You know, the boss goes, hey, how you doing? You know how the fuck I'm doing. I'm doing bad. That's how I'm doing. How the fuck could I be doing anything with this little bit of money you're paying me?
Here's the second part of this. I love it.
You know what it means when they pay you minimum wage? You know what they're trying to tell you? It's like, hey, if I could pay you less, I would. But it's against the law.
Exactly. You know, and of course, George Carlin. We played George Carlin a lot.
I love George Carlin, yeah.
And there's Sam
comedy makes
Kinison,
it all go down smooth.
Yeah. Hey, while we're talking comedy, I got to play this. This is Christopher Titus from Nevolution. And it is Monday. We do broadcast live on Mondays, right? So are you ready for the revolution? Yeah, Monday.
I'm tired of being afraid. For 10 years since 9/11, we've been afraid. It's over. It's time to take our country back for us. Take America back for us. It's time for revolution. Are you guys ready? Yeah, right. Revolution! Hold on, what day? Oh, yeah, no, Monday's bad. Now my kid has a soccer thing, and it's my TiVo catch-up night. So I'll tell you, why don't you text me some alternative revolution days, and I will have my assistant call you. Everybody wants revolution. No one's willing to pack a lunch.
Yeah, just text me some alternative revolution days, and I will have my assistant get back to you on that. Because I totally have an assistant, which I don't have. Anyways, it's good stuff, right? Good stuff. We got about 20 minutes left. I've got Mario Savio, Derek Jensen, John Pilger, and Chris Hedges on deck. And if you want to get into the conversation, you can, radioornot.com, filterfreeradio.com, or you can call us 503-746-TALK. Scott, I want to give you the lead on this because we did a lot of shows over the last couple of weeks. You didn't really get to take a lead on much of that, so I want you to call a couple shots here. What would you like to hear? Where do you want to go with this?
Oh, well, of course, I think one of the critical thinkers of our time that doesn't get much mention is Derek Jensen, and he's even by the so-called left standards, he's considered radical. And initially, when I used to listen to some of his, I listened to his YouTube. It's on my blog, of course. The YouTube lecture of his book Endgame. Man, that was heavy, and I felt really uncomfortable listening to it.
It's like, it's good.
Yeah, it's because he talks about. I mean, it's not that he advocates for violence, and he doesn't. He advocates for the logical conclusion of what happens if we do nothing. And I think it's really a heavy dose to swallow, a heavy pill to swallow. And so, you have that 1 minute clip. It's a 1 minute long clip.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to hit that one?
Yeah. Here you go. This is Derek Jensen on personal responsibility, right? Here we go.
Yeah, that's the one we ended the last hour with.
Abused children oftentimes assume responsibility for the abuse that's done to them. If I would have just cleaned the dishes well enough, my father wouldn't have hit me. If I would have just parked the car here instead of here. And that's crucial when you're powerless. When you're absolutely powerless, you have to take on some power. Otherwise, you'll drive yourself insane. So to start going, I'm responsible for deforestation because I use toilet paper, is an acknowledgement of my powerlessness in the larger scheme of things, but that's really dangerous because the truth is we do have power and we are culpable for something far greater than using toilet paper, which is for not stopping Weyerhaeuser. That's our responsibility, for not shutting down the whole system. My responsibility for global warming is not because I drive a car, having been born into car culture. My responsibility is for not shutting down car culture as a whole, which is much more serious.
One of my personal favorite things ever written by anyone, ever, is written by Derek Jensen. He wrote a fantastic short-form essay around 2011, 2012 for during the Occupy movement, and it was titled A New Declaration. And we read it on this program. I've read it on this program more than once. I've read it on Nicole Sandler's program once. I know Mike Malloy's read it on his program once. I listened to that show. And if you can find yourself a copy, and we should put up a link on the Facebook page just because we're talking about it to revisit. If you can get a copy of that and read it, it's phenomenal. It's just absolutely
It's only like 6-7 pages long. It's a long for an article, but obviously not a very long read. But yeah, no, he's absolutely right. I mean, it's the whole understanding, and we're talking about this. We're talking about this in the chat room right now, as Abby just popped in the chat room and mentioned about how we have a depressed economy, but we don't have a WPA. And I'd like to add to that the problem, I think, on a much larger scale is that things have been privatized, and that's how we get this kind of consolidation of wealth and the evisceration of the middle class. And that's that we need to nationalize that which has been privatized. And that goes for all the banks. I mean, the rational thing to do rather than give banks money would have been to nationalize them, as FDR did. Because let's face it, banking should be a utility and not a for-profit making enterprise that controls all of our daily lives.
Here's
just one example.
Here is the gist. By the way, Derek Jensen wrote a new declaration on February 1st, 2012, and it was at occupiedmedia.us. And Scott might have scared you off saying that it was like 7 or 8 pages long. The reality is it's only 3 pages long. It's very short.
It's dense, though. How's that? Yeah.
It's super dense. Here's the first paragraph. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that the real physical world is the source of our own lives and the lives of others. A weakened planet is less capable of supporting life, human or otherwise. Thus, the health of the real world is primary, more important than any social or economic system, because all social or economic systems are dependent upon a living planet. It is self-evident that to value a social system that harms the planet's capacity to support life over life itself is to be out of touch with physical reality. That any way of life based on the use of non-renewable resources is by definition not sustainable. And it goes on from there, and it only gets better, and I'll post a link on Facebook. It's good stuff. And here's another clip of Derek Jensen. This is the one that we play a clip of in our opening from time to time, and it is time to build a culture of resistance. That's what we're trying to do here on Filter Free Radio.
I think a lot of us are increasingly recognizing that the dominant culture is killing the planet. We can argue about whether, there will be a few bacteria left, but when 90% of the large fish in the oceans are gone, when there's 6 to 10 times as much plastic as phytoplankton in parts of the ocean, when there's dioxin in every mother's breast milk, sort of just playing with numbers to talk about whether it's killing the planet or simply mortally wounding it. And I think it's very important for us to start to build a culture of resistance because what we're doing isn't working, clearly.
Yeah, that was from Democracy Now! The one time Amy Goodman had him on about 2 years ago at least. And yeah, that's the whole point. I mean, obviously to sit back and to accept the current paradigm is to do nothing, is to do not enough because working within the system is what got us here in the first place.
Right. Status quo isn't going to change itself. We have to fuck the system up.
Again, it goes back to the concrete. If we're not dealing in the concrete, and the Green Party, I think, has spent a lot of time not dealing in concrete.
Democratic Party,
you're wasting your time. Everyone's time. So I'm for anything that fucks the system up. And raising the minimum wage fucks them up, great. Any way we can go, anything we can do.
When we interview Chris Hedges on this program, and it's going to happen one of these days, when we do it, I want to be absolutely clear with Chris that he can be as unfiltered as he like, and I want him to say things like, I want to fuck the system up. We got to change the status quo.
F-bombs every now and then really get the point across, you know?
It really does.
Yeah,
Once in
it's,
a while.
it's just yeah, appropriately placed.
But we don't
yeah, that's the
always
whole
have to
point.
use. We don't have to use the F-bomb, by the way. That's a whole nother conversation. But
Yeah, all right, Bill Cosby.
there may be community radio stations interested in picking up the program, and if that's the case, we'll think about it. So
we'll clean up the verbiage a little bit, but yeah, I think he's absolutely right, and that's the whole resistance on two tracks thing.
Right.
And if I could riff for a minute, I don't know how much time we have left. Not much.
10 minutes.
I mean, it's the whole. I decided a while ago when my father was diagnosed with prostate cancer about a year and a half ago. I decided that obviously everything we're doing in our society is poisoning us in some form or another, whether it's eating food from the food industrial complex, whether it's breathing toxic carbon monoxide from our exhaust fumes from our cars, to everything else that's going on in our environment that's actually pretty toxic for us. As Snork Y2K in the chat room will tell you, we're basically swimming in a toxic stew, and the best thing you could hope for at this point is to limit the damage that it'll do to you, because you can't entirely eliminate it. And that includes, of course, radiation from Fukushima and other sources. And so I sought to do just that. I sought to reduce the amount of toxicity that I am induced to every day. And basically, I did that by eating. I mean, food and cutting yourself off from the food industrial complex is probably the easiest thing to do, although it took me a full year to transition away from going to the grocery store and to getting all my food from the farmer's market and from my local nonprofit co-op. And then, therefore, all my food actually comes locally. And even
shutting
the
out
co-op
the poison.
itself, yeah, literally, physically shutting out the poison out from your body. And that means no more pesticides. That means no more genetically modified corn. No more genetically modified anything that's fed to the animals in which I consume. And I still eat chicken and pork, although I don't eat red meat anymore, or fish. Can't eat fish anymore. All the damn seas are polluted, and I don't live near the ocean, so it wouldn't be local. So, and the whole premise here, of course, is to, and of course, start growing my own food and cooking my own food and not eating out as much. And so it's a very natural progression. And I started it all by saying I want to cut corn out of my diet. And that's a really tough thing, because then you start to realize how invasive corn is in your diet. I mean, it's
corn syrup, right? Exactly.
Corn syrup alone, not to mention corn, whether it's Cheetos or Cheez-Its or anything, or corn. Let's face it, there's corn syrup in the bread you buy at the grocery store. I mean, everything has corn, and so you cut all this stuff out, and you realize that.
Abby in the chat room asks, "Have you cut out all beer too? Does this include?"
Actually, I have friends that make their own beer.
Okay.
Which is nice, and grow their own hops, which is really nice. And so I've not.
Well, hell
I'm not a
yeah,
big drink-
Bob and Rain, man. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
Bobber
I'm not
in
a big
DC,
drinker.
man. He's got great home brew. I've been there, done that. That's good stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the other thing too, is not giving the second aspect of that is not giving your money to these systems. I mean, that's part of bringing down these systems is to withdraw from them and build alternatives, so that when they do eventually collapse, or when we do force them to collapse, there are alternatives. And that means having the local farmers market to be your primary food source, and to empower these farmers to feed everybody by giving them your money and knowing them. I actually personally know the people who grow and raise the food. I mean, I get my meats from Julie, I get my vegetables from Christian, I get my breads from Diego, who grow, all these people and I get my soaps from Michelle. There's a lady at my
That's
farmer's
awesome,
market.
dude. That's so cool.
She makes her own soap. Her soap is awesome, by the way. I have been all winter. I rarely put lotion on my skin, no matter how dry it is, because her soaps are so moisturizing. Just as an example. And so as a side effect, I mean, there's less trash. I have less waste. I have less things to recycle, and that's just a side effect. That wasn't even one of my goals. I feel healthier. I've lost 40 pounds. I'm not even exercising yet. I need to do that, of course. I haven't got that far. But I'm eating healthy. I'm eating things I never thought I'd eat before, like turnips and spinach and kale and collard greens.
Ugh.
Yeah, and of course
I mean, as much as I'm with you, dude, and I want to,
But you know what makes it palatable is that the local farm-raised Berkshire bacon is fantastic, and a little bit of bacon on your collard greens makes it all go down smooth.
Well, exactly.
So and eggs. Oh my God, orange yolked eggs. Are you kidding me? At the very least, buy your eggs from your local farmer. You'll never go back to store bought.
Right.
It's just amazing.
And not only are you saving the world, but you're saving yourself one bite at a time.
Well, that's my point. Is that it's a very selfish act. I mean, let's face it. I don't want to die. I don't want prostate cancer.
Right.
I don't want to. I don't want to be fat, obese. I don't want to be on blood pressure medication.
We're being
anymore,
selfish in the wrong ways.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole point of, and again, I've made friends. I've become part of a community, and I'm more active. I mean, growing your own garden, and
Right.
if you have the space to do that, joining a community garden, it's cathartic. Getting out
Right.
there and gardening and being one with the soil. I mean,
I'm
as I
still
think,
I'm still in the position that you were in, back when we were hanging out in the good old days, a year ago, a couple of years ago, right?
sitting down eating a bag of Cheetos and a soda.
Good times, man. And so
Yeah, it's like I love that junk food. It tastes fantastic.
Right.
And don't kid yourself, man. I mean, if I thought about it, I really miss eating Cheetos and Cheez-Its and all that other garbage. But I found ways to transition away from that stuff. And so if I actually, and I have occasionally slipped and had a bag of chips every now and then or something, it actually physically makes me ill. My body, like if I had to eat McDonald's now, I would be firing out of both ends. I mean, there's no way I could digest that stuff because it's not food. It's just chemicals and rearrangements of chemicals. And so when you start reading labels on boxes and the things you put in your body, and you start you can't pronounce things. It's like the whole Michael Pollan. I mean, if
Right.
you watch any Michael Pollan videos, it's inspirational in itself because you start to say, well, the rule number one, food rules and eater's manual, where he says if you can't pronounce it, don't eat it. If you read it on the box and you don't know what it is, don't eat it. If it's not in your kitchen, don't eat it. So dimethyl, whatever. I mean, all this disodium phosphate, blah blah blah. All these chemicals you don't even have or don't know what they are. Don't eat them. They're bad for you inherently. And simplify. It's really a simplification of your life. And that's just one small example. And so, like, I'm working on building community agricultural communities, sustainable agricultural communities. I joined a CSA, community supported agriculture, where once a week I pick up a bag of vegetables that I paid for in advance for the whole season. And I'm forced to eat whatever they give me, whether it's turnips or, oh man, the carrots, by the way, are the bomb. Unbelievable carrots. Once you have local grown carrots, you'll never go back. Anyway, and so I'm ranting, but my point is that it's fun. It's a whole alternate universe that I was never exposed to before, and I've forced myself into it, and I'm a better person for it. And then the next step, of course, is going to be to get out there and organize and resist overtly, and to actually stop the machine.
Dude,
I don't know how to do that exactly. But
and right now, Truman Town in the chat room asks, "Guerrilla gardening?" ? Hell yeah, guerrilla gardening. We had this conversation
Ron
about Ron Finley and the TED Talk that Ron Finley gave. You need to check out LA Green Grounds, and I want to play I don't mean to cut you off, man.
Ron Finley.
But this clip is totally what you're talking about, and this guy needs to be explored. What is a guerrilla garden? This guy is living in South Central LA, and they got nothing down there, nothing but poverty. Here, listen to this.
Just like 26.5 million other Americans, I live in a food desert, South Central Los Angeles, home of the drive-through and the drive-by. Funny thing is, the drive-throughs are killing more people than the drive-bys. People are dying from curable diseases in South Central Los Angeles. For instance, the obesity rate in my neighborhood is like 5 times higher than, say, Beverly Hills, which is like probably 8-10 miles away. I got tired of seeing this happening. And I wonder, how would you feel if you had no access to healthy food? If every time you walk out your door, you see the ill effects that the present food system have on your neighborhood?
And so he showed up. He made a difference. He started turning that strip of grass that's between the sidewalk and the street. Some streets have it, some streets don't. That strip of grass, he's turning that into a garden. He's changed a lot of South Central LA landscape into food.
The front yard gardener. I mean, what a waste of resources it is to grow
grass. Exactly.
It's disgusting. And to break that paradigm from away from people to say, feed yourself. And then it's like putting solar panels on your roof. You put a garden in your front yard or backyard or wherever you can, you just freed yourself from the dependency on that industry.
Growing your own food is like printing your own money.
That's why I was hoping to get to that quote. Yeah, growing your own food is like printing your own money.
Here it is.
Growing one plant will give you 1,000, 10,000 seeds. Okay. When $1 worth of green beans will give you like $75 worth of produce. It's my gospel. I'm telling people, grow your own food. Growing your own food is like printing your own money.
Exactly. Yes. That's it, man.
That's just one aspect. I mean, I think it's empowering. It's so empowering. I can't tell you how much fun it is, especially in the summertime, to get out there and be one with nature. I mean, and then to reap the benefits of your work, literally. I mean, to have more food than you need. And the best part about that is, not the best part, but one of the aspects is when you have too many tomatoes or too many zucchinis, you give some to your friends and your neighbors.
Bingo.
And next thing you know, everyone's like enjoying the fruits of your labor and like, oh, this is great. I think I'm gonna do this myself next year. And you pay it forward. I mean, I've taken vegetables and things over to my parents' house and cooked them dinners, and they're like, it's nutrient dense food. And the important phrase to remember, a word is nutrient dense, because you don't get nutrient dense food at the grocery store or 7-Eleven or wherever. But by growing it yourself and using organic fertilizer and not using pesticides, etc., you have this nutrient density that you don't otherwise have, and you get much healthier eating, much healthier lifestyle.
We have a garden. We grow a garden every year, and go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/filterfreeradio, and you'll see pictures of our gardening. Okay, so we're like flat out of time, but I want to do two things. Scott, I want to give you a final word, and I want to play one more clip, and this clip is too long, so we're going to go a little long here. My apologies. Oh my goodness, you're going long. I got to play this clip. We're playing different clips of the show and things, and we always end with a Mario Savio clip. I'm going to play the regular outro we end every show with, but I don't play the full clip of this clip, and I just want to play the full version of this, or at least the minute and 40-second version of this clip for you in its entirety, in its context, because we normally play it at the end of the show, and I want to play the full clip here at the end of the show. And then, Scott, after this, you'll get 30 seconds to wrap it up. Then we really got to wrap it up because it's overtime. But I want to play this Mario Savio on the operation of the machine. This is a good one.
So here we are. 4 students are getting the axe. 6 organizations are getting the axe for standing up this semester and for fighting for these things. They're getting the axe not for what they did, but for what we have done. They spoke for us. They were part of us. They have been singled out, and they're going to be chopped off.
We were told the following: if President Kerr actually tried to get something more liberal out of the regents in his telephone conversations, why didn't he make some public statement to that effect? And the answer we received from a well-meaning liberal was the following. He said, would you ever imagine the manager of a firm making a statement publicly in opposition to his board of directors? That's the answer. Well, I ask you to consider, if this is a firm, and if the Board of Regents are the Board of Directors, and if President Kerr, in fact, is the manager, then I tell you something, the faculty are a bunch of employees, and we're the raw materials. But we're a bunch of raw materials that don't mean to have any process upon us, don't mean to be made into any product, don't mean to end up being bought by some clients of the university, be they the government, be they industry, be they organized labor, be they anyone. We're human beings. There's a time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
Now, you don't have to be that angry, but it riles people up, you know, when you're speaking the truth. So I dig it. And Scott, man, we're out of time, but I want to give you a final word.
Well, to be truly radical is to make hope possible rather than despair inevitable. And I think it's incumbent upon all of us to do what we can to make hope possible. And that requires action. That requires doing and living and changing our lifestyle and changing our lives and changing the lives of others. And it's not easy, but the rewards are far greater than not doing nothing, because doing nothing will certainly ensure our own demise.
Couldn't have said it better myself, brother. It's so good to have you on board, as always, as the producer, the co-host, and the kick-ass all-around brother from another mother, Mr. Skeptical Scott, the first person I have to thank on the thank you list. We've got to thank everyone who makes the show possible, and I couldn't do it without you. Couldn't do it without anyone. The people who syndicate the program, Nicole Sandler at RadioOrNot.com, Kenny Pick on Liberal Justice Radio, on TuneIn Radio, and A Online Radio. Thanks to Kevin McLeod of Incompetech, Dano of DanoSongs.com for music production. Thanks to our webmaster, website guru, Shano, for giving us our
awesome website, and a new one on the way. New Filter Free Radio coming soon. Big thanks to you, the listeners, our friends. Like the show, spread the word, help us grow. Big shout out to everyone in the chat room. Thank you guys. I can't do the show without JD Fishin, the official puppy sitter of Filter Free Radio. Thank you. And remember, if you want to participate, let's do it. Let's make it happen. We need you to participate, to get active, to be the change, to make a difference. Keep up the good fight. We will see you next Monday, everyone. Peace, love, and kick ass.
Filter Free
There's
Radio.
a time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. So give me something to believe, 'cause I am living just to believe, and I need something more to keep on breathing for. So give me something to believe.
The revolution will be broadcast
Monday from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern. Filter Free Radio.